All right, Robby, what's on your radar?
Is big tech becoming the world's policeman? The platforms are hunting so-called extremist content and sharing the results with law enforcement, an arrangement that should make civil libertarians very wary, even if it does stop genuine terroristic threats from time to time. This week, some of the largest and most influential tech platforms in the world announced they would expand their coordinated efforts to take down extremist content, according to Reuters. The Global Internet Forum to Counter-Terrorism is a joint database previously used by Facebook, Twitter, Microsoft, and other big tech companies to swiftly identify terrorist threats from the Islamic State, the Taliban, and other extremist groups flagged by the United Nations. But now the GIFTC will take a harder look at right-wing extremist groups like the alt-right and the Proud Boys. These domestic organizations, loose affiliations in truth, are responsible for plenty of mischief and mayhem. Leaders of the Proud Boys were jailed for taking part in the January 6th Capitol riots and have clashed with left-wing activists all over the U.S. But they're not a large, outstanding terroristic threat any more than Antifa, their left-wing equivalent, is. Needless to say, they're quite different from ISIS, which is dedicated to the fall of the United States and inspires attacks all over the world. Purging social media of even violent terroristic content is a more questionable idea than it may seem. A recent study found that Facebook's policy of removing ISIS-related content from the site paradoxically aided the group's efforts. Terrorist plots that were discussed widely on social media were actually much more likely to fail, since they were easily countered by law enforcement. Content removal may inadvertently be aiding terrorists and hampering law enforcement investigations, wrote Joe Whitaker, a researcher and the author of that study. Now, the case for taking swift, decisive, and draconian action against less threatening extremist content is even weaker. Consider how the process works. One social media site identifies the unique numerical signature of a piece of content and then reports it to the database. Other social media sites can then recognize that signature on their own platforms and take it down simultaneously in a coordinated manner. This raises a real potential problem. If a piece of content is wrongly flagged on one site, well, then it's likely to be flagged on all social media sites. Facebook, Twitter, and Google are private companies, and thus their users don't have constitutional rights to due process or innocence until proven guilty. That doesn't mean we have to meekly accept a system whereby all content moderation systems act in unison to squelch contrarian speech with little warning or fanfare, especially when this squelching is done at the behest of, and in order to benefit, law enforcement. As the database expands, the risk of mistaken takedown only increases, Emily Lanson, director of free expression at the Center for Democracy and Technology, said in a statement. This expansion of the database only intensifies the need for GIFCT to improve the transparency and accountability of these content-blocking resources. And it's not just social media sites. PayPal recently announced that it would partner with the Anti-Defamation League to investigate the extent to which its own platform is used to fund hate movements and extremist groups, with a likely eventual goal being to prevent extremists from using PayPal at all. PayPal openly admits that it will share the information it collects with other financial service providers and also with law enforcement. Now, the ADL does a lot of great work, but it also defines extremism and hate speech very broadly, as anti-hate watchdog groups tend to do. They raise money when hate crimes appear to be growing in number, after all. We should be very worried that an ADL-directed effort here would deplatform not just actual violent extremism, but also merely provocative speakers. This move also clashes with very basic principles of fairness and due process that undergird our society. PayPal, for instance, blocked the alleged participants in the January 6th Capitol riots from using the platform to raise funds for their defenses. Now, even if you believe all of these people are guilty and deserve to be criminally charged for trespassing and property destruction, well, they're still entitled to a defense in court. That's something even Vice President Kamala Harris believes. Remember when she called on her Twitter followers to donate money to Black Lives Matter protesters who were arrested in Minnesota for similar alleged crimes, trespassing and property destruction? The far-right protesters who smashed the windows of the Capitol should be entitled to the same presumption of innocence and the ability to fund their defense that was enjoyed by left-wing activists following the George Floyd protests. If Democratic politicians, their allies in the media, and sympathetic tech platforms are all inclined to help the latter group, but not the former, we should consider that naked political bias is probably at play. What do you think, Kim?
I think that a lot of this censorship is extremely dangerous. I know a lot of people on the right talk about it as though it's affecting mostly people on the right, and maybe today it seems to be, but this is stuff that, everybody on both sides of the aisle needs to be alarmed about. This is affecting both, and historically this has gone after people on the left more so than the right, whether they be people that were even just the McCarthyism era, anti-war, gays, LGBT. So all of this affects everybody. It is, like you said, it just matters on what these groups define as hate or dangerous. That is extremely broad. What is considered hate? What is considered dangerous? What is considered extreme? Almost anything could be if it's just slightly off from the norm.
Yeah, and I especially worry, because again, and I said this in what I just discussed, these are private companies, so it's not the same. I mean, it's just simply, even if you wish that they were obligated to have some kind of due process standard, the First Amendment is ultimately going to protect them in saying that they basically have the right to set their own speech-related policies. But when they're being pressured by the government to take certain actions, as we've seen most recently with vaccine disinformation, so-called that sort of thing, but we have seen it in the past, and certainly will see it again with violence, with so-called right-wing terrorism, that kind of thing. The government, law enforcement, the FBI pressuring them to do certain things, and then they're going along with it, probably because many of these platforms, these companies, rightly fear that if they don't go along with it, they'll be the subject of some indictment or investigation.
Right.
That is something to beware. The union of big tech and big government in a civil, unlibertarian way is dangerous, and we should all be concerned about that, because you're exactly right. This kind of stuff, maybe right now in this moment, it's debatably more often targeting the right, but certainly in the past, historically, left-wing groups have been targeted and will again in the future, and are being targeted right now, to be frank.
And by the way, just to be extremely clear, and I know people get this definition always confused, but mixing big tech, these big corporations, and government is the exact definition of fascism. Yeah. This is what fascism is. People always say, oh, no, it's this other group that is doing it. Or, we heard this a lot over the last several years of it's the right, it's Trump and his movement that is fascist. But when these big corporations are working at the behest of government, which I would absolutely contest is an infringement on the freedom of speech, when the government is essentially threatening in a roundabout way these big tech companies and saying, do our job or else, go out there and censor dissent or else, to me that seems like there is a case there for freedom of speech. But this is the exact definition of living under a fascist regime. This is what it looks like.
Yeah, it's concerning, it's scary, and we have to look out for it, because this is this could be the future. This issue is going to be with us for a long time, and people are having their rights, their due process rights violated, and it's a big problem. I'm really looking forward to hearing your radar next.